I'd say keep going because the me in the past got me to this me. And I'm relatively thankful when it comes to video editing where I am right now. Like, can always be better. So I'll just say, hey, old me, keep going. You're not doing too badly. You know that thing you had in mind? Yeah, do that.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Talk Trash, and stand back for another video. This time, I'm joined by the one and only Rob from Guiding Raw. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Glad to be here.
So if we take this back, my friend, where do you first discover wrestling as an overall fan?
Oh, I think it was like around probably the early 2000s for me, the invasion storyline specifically. I think that's what got me into wrestling. How about you?
Oh, so for me, it's 2009. I was a Batista, you're supposed to be my friend kid. I don't know if you remember that.
Rey Mysterio, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So that
You're
was me.
and
That
you're
was me.
supposed to be my friend, kid.
And he
That's
kicks
great.
him and he kicks him in the head.
Oh,
I
heartbreak.
love I love that turn so much. But this isn't about me today, my friend. This is about you. But
Oh,
you talked about the invasion there. So what was it about the invasion that got you like hooked this into my veins, for lack of a better word?
it's kind of like I guess today it's kind of like the MCU kind of thing. You got these got a big gang of bad guys, a big gang of good guys, and all this like stuff in between. It felt like a huge like world changing event. The whole storyline, even though when you look back now, could have done it so much better. But yeah, it just felt like the big scale of it. It felt important to me at the time.
You compared WWE and the invasion to like the MCU. So well, how would you compare the two sort of thing?
So like the MCU, you have so many characters and so many. I mean, it boils down really to the good side and the bad side. Some gray areas, kind of, but not really. And so you've got like the invasion of like WCW. You got Booker T, Stone Cold would join the alliance, and so would Kurt Angle as a mole. You had RVD, Shane McMahon, all these bad guys, a whole rogue of villains. And on the good side, you had Taker, Kane, The Rock, Chris Jericho, and all these people, and they just sort of fought together. And he's like, they had these two big tag matches during that storyline, and it just felt like, yeah, just like in Endgame, you have this big group of good guys face the big group of bad guys. It's not like a one versus one thing. It is good versus evil. And in this case, WF at the time was good. Don't think it was, but we'll see.
But
It was a
as
good
a so
storyline.
yeah, I see what you're saying completely there. So, for a bit of context for fans, did you have any prior knowledge of what WCW was as someone that discovered wrestling in the invasion?
Yeah. No, I had no idea. That's a great question. No, I thought WCW, thought, oh, they're just bad guys, aren't they? That's all I knew them for when I was becoming a wrestling fan. But yeah, I had no idea until I go in and you go, wow, this was a company that was around for a couple of decades. You had Jim Crockett before that. And yeah, there's a rich history in WCW, but I had no idea at the time.
What is something maybe you've gone back and watched on the network and you're like, oh, I wish I was a fan during this period in WCW?
Oof. I'd have to say like the early 90s and late 80s, like no, the early 90s. They had Sting when Cactus Jack was in WCW specifically. He
Mm.
was he was one of those guys at the time, was very underrated. It's before Mankind, before Dude Love. He was just this like kind of like a Darby Allin figure now. He was
Mm.
in the middle of the card doing these crazy bumps at the time. And you could tell he was really good, but also kind of like a trash wrestler. Like hardcore wrestling was kind of looked down upon at the time. So I would have loved to have been a fan during those times and see Mick Foley like make his name in WCW.
What about if we flip the question? Is there something that you go back and watch and you're like, yeah, I'm glad I wasn't a fan during this point?
Oh, there's a few things, unfortunately. I did I think it was like a couple of WrestleManias ago. I decided to watch WrestleMania 1. And I thought, oh, it's gonna be a bit older, a bit slower pace. That's fine. It was a bit too slow. But I thought, oh, it was all right. Mr. T and Hogan, that was cool seeing them tag together. Weren't exactly like the Young Bucks or or the Usos out there, but it wasn't too bad. But then you get to WrestleMania 2, and that was what an awful show, WrestleMania
Oh
2.
no. I
What a,
know why WrestleMania 2 is so bad, but why is WrestleMania 2 so bad for you?
so they had this idea that after WrestleMania 1, is like, how can we make this even bigger deal? I know. Let's host WrestleMania in 3 separate cities and venues at the same time. They had
Yeah.
one, I think, in Chicago, one in, I think it's California somewhere. And I can't remember the other two. I just remember one of them was at the
New
Rosemont in
York, I
Chicago.
think. I think New York's one, but I don't know
Mm-hmm.
that for a fact.
Same. But yeah, it was just, and what a mess. It's just, you had these, so if you're there live, you have like 4 matches on each show. So if you're there at one of the venues, you can only get to see 4 matches. And this is WrestleMania. Before it's WrestleMania 2, but still it's WrestleMania. It's just so confusing. Like you go from one show and then you go to the next show, and there's no like back and forth. And all the matches, like, except for like maybe a couple tags. I think Brian Zane did a video on WrestleMania 2 this year.
Yeah.
And I echo the same sentiments as him. Not a good show. Really not good.
You brought up Brian Zane there and things like that. As he is a good friend, though, that is a great segue of like, how do you connect with the great people that are Stephen Larson and Guy in Raw?
Oof. Well, for me, it was kind of badgering them was a good way to do it. Obviously, in a nice way. Don't be too
Mm.
aggressive or like forward. Just I started watching some of their content, and then I wrote some reviews on their EFED stuff, Fun Wrestling and W Steve W. I thought, wouldn't it be funny if someone wrote a review of this ridiculous 2K game stuff as if it was a real wrestling show? And I did that for a laugh, and then I eventually put it on Twitter. Was in the chat saying, "Hey, I've done this." Then what do you mean? Who are you? Why have you done a review on this show that we have for fun? And yeah, that's how I got the name Going In Raw Observer, as like Going In Raw Wrestling Observer. Merge the two, and it's the Going In Raw Observer.
Mm. So you talked about their writing a review and their reaction sort of being like, what, why? Like sort of thing. So when they do have that reaction, is that disheartening or are you a bit like, no, I'm going to keep doing this because I find it fun?
Yeah, it was definitely the second. I did find it just fun to do because it is it's such a ridiculous thing to do. Like it's not. It's them playing video games and making their own storylines and stuff. And I'm like this is the furthest thing from serious wrestling. Wrestling's not serious as it is, so this is even less serious. Playing a video game version of it, and I love the ridiculousness of it. I thrive in just ridiculousness.
Mm.
So I was not disheartened at all. If anything, eventually they were pretty nice going forward. Initially, they were kind of like, that's really weird, and they thought that several people, like of their mods or something, like were together making a newsletter, but it was just me. They were like, okay, this guy's a little crazy, but he's got a good, maybe he's got a good sense of humor.
So you talk about having a great sense of humor there. What was it that we've gone around the houses there? What was it that attracted you to the Guy in Raw Boys content?
For me, it was just they seemed quite casual. Like as a guy from Cambridgeshire in England, the United Kingdom, their California sentiment, that California attitude of just sort of relax, don't take yourselves too seriously. It's a stereotype because not everyone in California is like that. But they kind of the way you just sort of you felt like it was just a hangout with some buddies when you watch one of their streams. It's just them at the time. It was them two in a room, bunch of stickers everywhere, and they're just talking wrestling. And they seem very casual and very open-minded and just positive. And I was just like, oh, it's just like a bunch of virtual buddies you can just talk to about wrestling and be in the chat and stuff like that. It was very easy to get into them. And yeah, it sort of grew from there.
How did, because we talked about your early fandom, but how did discovering Going in Raw change your fandom overall?
Oh, I'd say I got more into wrestling as a whole because of them. Like with wrestling podcasts, and there's many of them now. It's a thriving scene. You don't necessarily have to watch wrestling. You could just sort of keep up to date by watching like podcasts and like all the YouTube podcasts, basically. But for some reason, we're going in Raw. Like at the time, WWE wasn't great at the time, but NXT was thriving, and they were big fans of that. New Japan. They just gotten hooked onto that around 2017, and it was kind of like it was nice to see people enthused about wrestling when they could be. They weren't not lying. They're not like, oh, this wrestling's bad. Let's pretend we like it. They weren't like that at all. They were like, if this is good, let's praise it because good wrestling should be praised. And yeah, like it made me more of a wrestling fan, and I took more chances on other wrestling promotions because of that positive attitude.
What was the wrestling promotion that you were like, I maybe not would have given? What is the wrestling promotion essentially that you were like, that you gave a chance because of their positive attitude?
Triple A, man, Triple A.
I thought, right.
Yeah, but they Triple Mania is such a staple of going in Raw now. But at the time when they were like, let's watch Triple Mania on a stream, and I think it was on Twitch for free at the time, and they could co-stream it, so you could watch Triple Mania and you could see the little boxes, their heads around the corner, all in one screen. And Triple Mania it's like WrestleMania. It's like this spectacle, but it's a different cultures, and as a whole, the wrestling is completely different because it's lucha libre, but it's like contemporary lucha libre. So you got the old school stuff, you got the crazy like hardcore stuff, you have the characters, and you have no idea what's going on. And it was just so exciting and colorful. And some of the best wrestling in the world was on the show, and some of the weirdest stuff was on that show. And yeah, that was Triple A became a huge favorite of mine, specifically Triple Mania.
Mm. I know what a highlight those streams were for the boys and stuff like that. So, do you have a specific memory that you were like, yeah, I wouldn't have enjoyed this so much if Stephen Larson weren't watching this?
um, oh, it's kind of a recent memory, but this is NXT 2.0, so it's relatively recent. And I was one of those guys that was like, oh, Black and Gold NXT was like, I was a big fan of that. And then they went to 2.0, just jarring change to 2.0, and it made me disillusioned with it. Of, oh, I'm not going to watch this. It's just they're just ignoring everything about the past, and now they're just this random new show, and it just felt like a reboot, like not a very unnatural reboot, and it took me out of it. But then they started doing reviews of NXT 2.0, and they talked about this one wrestler called Von Wagner.
Mm.
And I was like, who's this Von Wagner guy? Why is he in the forest with Kyle O'Reilly? What's going on? And he became, because going in Raw Law, there's like a couple wrestlers that are like going in Raw guys. There's
Yeah,
like a Dijak is one of them. Sid, another one. Of course, the biggest one, Baron Corbin. Just
yeah.
guys that are not like necessarily like they're not valued that much by wrestling fandom, but going in Raw kind of ironically likes them, but at the same time unironically goes, well, these guys are actually pretty good. And Von Wagner is another one of those guys where it's just like, who is this guy? Like he's a second generation wrestler, I think. And he's just this big guy that's kind of he's just on Raw one time with Adam Pearce as a bodyguard. And it's just he's a very peculiar but fascinating wrestler. And because of the guys that like going on Raw, the fandom just rotated around Von Wagner. I was like, oh yeah, I'll check out NXT 2.0 just to see Von Wagner. And yeah, it was fun times. He's still there now.
Mm. That's very, very cool. So you talked about how you started not working for, but started your fandom of Going in Raw by writing reviews on their internet show, so their gaming show, should I say? So when that comes to an end, like they decide it's not getting the views, or they decide just not to do it anymore, how does that change your fandom of Going in Raw? And how, what, when? Let me start that again. When do you sort of become their editor, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, it's a big. I mean, first off, the change when they stopped doing the fun wrestling WCW stuff, they'd start it up again every time the new game came out, the new 2K game, and they would come out. They do it for a few months, and the views aren't coming in. Let's shelve it, put our attention somewhere else because it's a business they run at the end of the day. And so the new game would come out. They'd start Bad and Rad Wrestling, which is like the offspring of Bad and of Bad Fun and WCW. So many weird wrestling names. But yeah, after a while, they just stopped doing it overall. It's just it keeps happening. We keep doing it, and we just don't get the views. No one wants really to see that content except for me, I guess. There's a few people, but but in the meantime, I kind of organically I would clip some of their podcasts. They would do like just NXT review shows, Raw reviews, and they'd talk about these little things within the show, and they ponder like ideas for certain characters, like, oh, what if What if like Miro, not Miro, sorry, Otis. I think it was Rusev was around there at the time. Otis and the Mandy thing, and what if Otis was like got a Mandy confused for a ham because Otis really liked ham at those days. He'd just have a big hunk of ham that his mum got him, and I'd make like little. Oh, that sounds funny, and I'd screen grab the footage and I put a few things. And this is just how I'd never edited really before. I just had an idea in my head. I was like, well, what's editing software? Google that. What I need this, so I need that. Oh, this is how I can do that. That's how I do this. And eventually I just sort of went like little, like I wanted just little posts, just little like 1 minute, 2 minute clips that I put on Twitter. And it's like a little, like a highlight thing. Many people do like, there's a guy called David who does a lot of, podcast highlights of the Deadlock Boys, Deadlock podcast. And he'll take a segment of it and add like loads of graphics and pictures and stuff and funny animations. It was kind of like that, but like way dumbed down. And I still kind of do that kind of stuff now. But yeah, it just sort of became little things. And I'd send them on Twitter and they'd realize, oh, this guy can edit, not very well. But I kept doing it and doing it. And after again to talk to the guys, I was like, hey, started making suggestions. Like, hey, I know you're like Steve, for example, would do a stream and I'd say, hey, Steve, can you send me the stream footage and I can edit it together and make it like a highlight of the stream kind of thing and stuff like that. And yeah, eventually they were like, oh, you're actually good at editing, which is still crazy to me. Like I suffer a lot from like low self-esteem.
Imposter
So
syndrome at all?
definitely for sure, imposter syndrome. And that's very hard to hear like someone go like, you're really good at something and you're like, nah. But at the same time, they keep asking me for like video edits and stuff. I'm like, well, maybe they wouldn't just be lying to me and then like making me do this, you know? But yeah, just eventually it became like a natural thing. Like they just noticed that I could edit videos and they asked me to do this and there became more and more and more. Can you make this music? Because like, yeah, I can do that. All that kind of, it just sort of grew naturally, I feel like.
So you talked about imposter syndrome. I like to focus on mental health as an aspect as a content creator, if that's okay with you.
Of course,
for
Tom. Yeah,
a
sure.
minute. So you talked about the imposter syndrome. So if you look back on the first video you did for Guiding Raw, and you talked about imposter syndrome there, what would you say to the Rob that did that first video now? And what would you think he would think of the video that you're putting out on a regular basis?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't really know what I'd say to me of the past. I mean, I'd say keep going because the me in the past got me to this me, and I'm relatively thankful when it comes to video editing where I am right now. Like, can always be better. So I'll just say, hey, old me, keep going. You're not doing too badly. You know that thing you had in mind? Yeah, do that. And but if I looked at some old videos now or something like that, like it's been a big change, and I do feel like I don't really necessarily feel like that confident as a video editor. Like I never really wanted to branch out and be like a video editor for other people in the wrestling space. Like I did do some stuff with Kayla of Church of Joshi, Kayla Vision, her YouTube channel. She did a few Resident Evil streams that I shortened together and made it more bite sized for YouTube. That was kind of like a recommendation thing. Like Steve recommended me to her, and Kayla's cool. I think she's great. I really liked Church of Joshi. Like, it was the best stream going for a while, and yeah, it just never really. So I still lack that confidence to be like, hey, this is me. These are my services. Come on. I kind of it still feels like a hobby a little bit at the same time. I don't really edit videos professionally, so to speak. It's still kind of like a hobby, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not there yet. It's hard to. The imposter in me is just like, you don't deserve to be a video editor that makes money because you need to be good at that, and I'm not good at that. And I don't know when it's gonna get to the point where I feel like, oh, I'm good at this, because of the imposter syndrome.
I fully understand what you're saying there. So talking about because I have it as an interviewer, I'm sure you've seen my Twitter on occasion where I've been like, imposter syndrome's kicking my butt today, guys.
Oh,
I'm very sorry.
Yeah, for sure. And it's such a relatable thing these days. I feel like so many people have it these days. So many creatives and artistic people like yourself. Like, it's a really hard thing to get past.
So what do you do? You talk about imposter syndrome there. How does it feel then when you see, for example, an edited clip of the podcast and you're like, I did this? How does that feel when the work's completed, for lack of a better phrase?
I'll be honest, it does feel good at the same time. It does feel really good to see, like, the first few times I sent them something like, hey, I've edited this, and they said, hey, let's put this on the channel. And I see it on the channel, and then eventually I'm like, I'm on the channel. Like, what the hell? That's crazy. Like, I'm just a guy that watches them. And now a video that I edited or helped edit together in some cases, like, it's there. Like, people are watching it, and I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. Like, and then after a while, Steve would start saying in the descriptions of videos, "Oh, edited by Rob." And Rob, where is Rob? Rob here.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, such a stupid name. It's not my real name. Don't worry. My mother's not. Let's call you Rawb. Why would you say that? That's not a name. But but like after a while, they'd have my name in the description saying edited by me, and I couldn't. I was like, that's me. And then I see the comments going, oh, great job, like to me, like going, oh, great video, great editing. Who's the editor? And people will be like, oh, like people in the community that know who I am, like because I'm in the chat with them and stuff. They're like, that's Rob. I know Rob because I see him in the stream chat and the YouTube chat. There's people that like me now, which is crazy. Like there are people that are really positive about some of the stuff that I do. And yeah, I really struggle to accept compliments, and everyone's been really really nice. Like when something I've like I can't even think of a negative comment that I've seen on one of those YouTube videos. Maybe I'm doing a good job of just blocking them out because I don't
Yeah,
remember them if they did happen. But it was just overwhelmingly positive, and that really made me feel good and continues to make me feel good whenever there's a video that comes out and it's edited by me and people go, that's raw, well done. And I'm like, it makes me feel good still to this day.
that's very, very cool, my friend. So you talked about editing clips together, and I'm really curious to know this. Have you ever edited a clip together and posted it on your socials or shown it to Stephen Larson and they're like, nah, this isn't for us. Please don't promote this for not promote. I know what word I mean. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, totally. There was one. Uh, there hasn't been much because I feel one of the things that makes me good at editing for these guys is I've been watching for so long and I kind of understand the shorthand of
Mm.
like their sense of humor and stuff. So I'm not like trying to get my own shit in, so to speak. Sorry to swear.
It's cool. I have an
Sorry.
editor and he will bleep it out, hopefully.
Oh, sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Editor. Um, but yeah, I there was one where I was like, they were talking about, I don't even know if he's still in NXT, but I can't remember his name. But they were making poop jokes about a wrestler, and I was like, oh, that's funny. I put some poop stuff on there, and just them making fart noises, and I was like, that was funny, and they were like, ah, that might be too much like us. That's just too dumb. So I think that happened like once, but most of the time it's kind of, if anything, I rein them in sometimes, depending. Like they sent me like a doing 10 for the win a while ago, and one of the jokes would be like possibly like offensive, maybe, or possibly maybe. And I'm just saying, hey, this might be, could be. And they're like, yeah, actually, no, we think you're right. Can you edit around that, please? So yeah, sure. I'm just being like super like open minded about it for.
Mm.
But
So you talked.
yeah, sorry, Tom. Yeah.
No. Keep going. No, I shouldn't have interrupted you. I do apologize.
No, it's all right. I ramble on, as you know, from just this conversation right now. But
No,
it,
no, definitely not, pal. So you did talk about there being a fan of going in Raw and knowing their shorthand. How do you balance that, being a fan, but also, for lack of a better word, making sure that the content you're not being overly fanboy? Does that make sense?
yes. Well, thankfully, I don't have to be too objective with the stuff that I have to edit for them, because it's not like I'm editing their actual, like, it's hard to describe. So as a fan, I think when it comes to the fanboy slash like objectively do a good job thing, like it's hard to try and edit the video for mass appeal, like for everybody. Maybe for people that see the video and don't watch Going in Raw. That's something I try and keep in mind is that because most of my fandom is with them. And if I'm making a video, I've got to make sure that, hey, if I'm going to do an inside joke that only the Going in Raw friendos know, then I've got to be sure to maybe not include that because it might alienate people that are watching the channel for the first time. So that's a line I have to kind of go around. But yeah, it's when it comes to that's probably the best example of that. Yeah, just making sure that you're not alienating new fans.
That's very, very cool. So you talked about some videos where the fans might find your good work on them, but give us some that the fact definitely if they want to check out your work on Going in Raw, fans are like, you can definitely find my fingerprints on this video, for example.
I'd say, well, the guys famously they did 10 for the win before starting the Going in Raw Wrestling channel, and they did going 10 for the win wrestling lists as well in the channel like several different times. And I think the last time they did it, I edited about 4 or 5 of them. So everything you see in the video, I put together. Like they sent me nothing; they just sent me the audio, and I
Mm.
just made all the visuals myself. And I'm pretty proud of that. It does some of it doesn't hold up now because it was a few years ago, but I was very proud of it. That was very labor intensive. And also the on Steve's channel, Wrestle Juice, he did Steve Thunder, his My Rise last year,
Oh
WWE
yeah.
2K 223. He did a bunch of streams of that, and I would edit the streams together in little 20-minute videos, and he put them on his Wrestle Juice channel. And I'm very proud of that. That's very fast paced, very ADHD style editing, like a mile a
Mm.
minute. It does not bore you. And I was proud of that. There's the My GM stuff and the My GM stuff specifically with Enforcer.
Mm.
For God rest him, love him. He that was an interesting. Like I'm very good at the ADHD mile a minute kind of editing
Yeah.
pace, and it was nice to sort of take a beat and just sort of. Man, this is like years ago. Like something about Enforcer, Steven Larson as a like three. They have such a calming, like banterous atmosphere. Like you can leave in the gap. Like with editing, there's talking and then there's a gap, and you take out the gap so the talking happens seamlessly. With these three, the gaps kind of made it a bit. It kind of aided to the atmosphere. It felt like you leave the gap in, it feels like you're just talking to three guys. Because when you talk in real life, like people have gaps when they talk. Like
Mm.
it's not like we're not all performing all the time. We're just chit chatting. And I thought, yeah, the My GM stuff, it would be Enforcer and Steve. And I just sort of be kind of a bit less, like edit less, like tinker with it less because it was already good. I'm just making it shorter, just making it a bit leaner. That's all I'm doing. I'm not trying to like make anything more than it is because it's already perfect as it is. And I was very proud of those. So the My GM stuff is on Friendo Club. All of that, which is I was very proud of that too. That I still watch a couple of those to this day. And it's one of those things that I watch now and I'm like, it doesn't feel like I've edited it because I haven't really done much to it, but it still keeps it good in my heart. It's like when you make something yourself, you can't really enjoy it
Yeah.
sometimes. It's kind of like that. But with My GM stuff, it doesn't feel like mine, but in a good way. It still feels like it is. And I still, yeah, still like watching that stuff.
Mm. So I was waiting for you to bring him up, if I'm being totally honest. But you brought up the enforcer there. So where were you when, as someone that's in the UK, where were you when you found out he passed away? And how did that change your fandom for wrestling and Going in Raw as a whole?
Um, I was at home, I think. I think I heard about him like around the afternoon, and or we already knew he was not doing too well. He was in the hospital, but no, I many of us didn't know how he was doing, and hearing the news like really suddenly, like it just felt really suddenly, and personally for me, I've had a few family members and friends pass away too suddenly for my liking. It's no good way to die, I guess. But I always thought that I'd have more time with certain people. Enforcer was another one. Like I thought, like he's good. It's Enforcer, you know, like,
Mm.
but it happened way too soon and way too suddenly. And yeah, I didn't. I for the rest of the day, didn't really didn't really hit me. Kind of, well, this no, this is hasn't happened yet. You know, this yeah, I really struggled processing that.
I understand what you're saying completely there because I really struggled as well. Because I don't know if you remember this, but I had interviewed Larson the month before, around that period, and he sent me a message just saying, uh, I I don't care what you do, but can you put a little card up basically saying this was recorded before the enforcer passed away, essentially, because there was a lot of talk about what he added to going the role, but in the present tense, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that was very weird, even just as a fan, and as someone who he'd been on the channel before, and I remember Facebook was the death of me my Facebook page for Tom Talks Rubbish, a memory flashed up, and what was it? A flipping clip from that interview, and that was it, man. I was bawling.
No man.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry, I
man.
shouldn't have gone off on a tangent there. I do apologize.
No, no, no. I like hearing about this stuff, man. I like hearing how Enforcer like affected so many people. Like, I mean, this he's everything you hear about him that's positive. It's not only
Mm.
positive; it's true. He really was like ridiculously too good for this world. He was the best. Like, he really was the best.
I fully agree, my friend. So before we both start bawling again, let's talk about something a little bit more happier, which is, oh, maybe this will go in the other direction. But I'm curious to know where is your current wrestling fandom as we record this in March of 2024? Where's your current fandom?
Right now for me, it's pretty positive. So it's a positive answer I'm gonna give you because wrestling, a lot of wrestling seems pretty cool right now. WWE is like it's nearly WrestleMania, about a month from now or so, and that's it's not for me necessarily the Cody Rock Roman stuff, but it's not boring. I'd give it that. It's not boring. It's very interesting. And when it comes to WrestleMania, yeah, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna plunk down money for the network, and I'm gonna watch that stuff. But right now, for me, AEW is really hitting its stride. They just had Revolution not too long ago. That was one of the best shows I've ever seen them do. Sting's retirement was, oh, just what a perfect way to end a career. And New Japan's going through a bit of a hard time because they've lost Okada, they've lost Jay White, they've lost Will Ospreay, and they're
Mm.
maybe not doing the best job in creating new stars like Yota Tsuji and Yuya Uemura and Ren Narita, Shota Umino. But there's Jack Perry's there, and I just caught up on the other day his first match there with Shota Umino, and I just realized that Jack Perry hasn't wrestled in like 6 months ever since
Yeah,
All In and the Punk stuff. And I was just like, wow, I haven't seen a Jack Perry match in 6 months. 6 months, and he's good, man. Like he's put on a bit of size, maybe. Maybe it's the New Japan presentation because the cameras are different there and stuff. But it was interesting, and I'm intrigued. And yeah, there's just so much good wrestling to watch these days, you know. So yeah, I
mm.
feel in a good place when it comes to my wrestling fandom.
So I'm really curious to know as well, where would you be if you never discovered Stephen Larson as a fan? And then where do you think you'd be if you never took a shot and said, I've done this, what do you think? With the Observer newsletter sort of thing.
Don't know. Probably leave the house more.
Fair.
Wouldn't be in my room editing stuff as much. But I'm just kidding. I like doing that. I bit of an introvert in my the last couple of years. I used to be like a really outgoing guy. Like I'd be fun to talk to, that kind of thing. Not so much now, but I'd I do like the work ethic it's brought in me a little bit. Like there's like actually having a job, and then there's like doing something you enjoy
Mm.
and trying to like meet deadlines at the same time. I've not really had that before. Like something you actually enjoy doing and making sure you get it done in time. And that was something that I don't think I would have otherwise if it wasn't Stephen Larson. like working on something cool, you know. And also like as I said, a big fan of ridiculous things, and I'm maybe even more a fan of doing ridiculous things because of those guys now, because they are also very ridiculous, and it's nice to see that in a world that could be so horrible all the time, like it's just no matter where you turn, there's something negative. It's worth being ridiculous for a minute, you know, just doing some silly stuff that doesn't hurt anybody, and it's just really weird. Like just for a bit of fun, why not? We deserve, as just us humans, we deserve to have a laugh, you know. So yeah,
Mm,
I'm glad because of that, because maybe I would have struggled doing that if hadn't met Stephen Larson.
that's very, very cool, my friend. What about, do you have any advice for someone? Because you shot your shot, you created something to sort of connect with content creators and things like that, and just to sort of have fun and maybe branch out on their brand, sort of thing. I hope I've worded that correctly. I know what I'm trying to say, sort of thing,
I
to help
understand.
them
Yeah, yeah.
branch out their brand. I mean, so do you have any advice for someone that maybe wants to be in your position, wants to work for their favorite content creator? Sort of thing.
Um, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I haven't. I'm against the imposter syndrome thing. Like you make it sound like I've actually done something good. Like in my head doesn't. That's a thing I'd say to content creators. Be ready to feel not good at what you're doing and doubt yourself. Expect to doubt yourself, because everyone does it. And when you're doing something, I feel like sometimes when you're doing something that you actually enjoy doing, the doubts get louder because you care about it more, regardless of what it is. If it's video editing, if it's doing the garden, you know, just whatever, man. Like if you're constantly thinking about it and putting yourself down about it, it's because you care about how it comes out. And you need to be ready for that and make sure to keep positive about it. Like on a positive, that's what the channel going raw is all about, you know, like being positive. And yeah, I'd say be nice. Yeah, be positive, be outgoing, think it's, and try and contribute something that no one else has done. You know, if you want to be a video editor, for example, and you want to video edit for a wrestling YouTube channel, and you see what the content they're putting out, try and come up with ideas of what you would like to see as a fan their content be. So like, oh, what if they did more shorts? Like, what if like out of, let's say Wrestle Talk, for example, did more shorts, YouTube shorts content? Like you could do that. You could screen record their stuff. I'm not saying steal their stuff, but you could hypothetically screen record some of their stuff, put it in phone aspect ratio, and send it to one of them. They've got email addresses. They have Discord servers. There's many ways you could reach out to Wrestle Talk, for example, and just say, "Hey, I made this. Maybe you could do something like that." And you never know. They might go, "Actually, would you like to do that? Because this is a really good job you just did here." You never
Mm,
know. You just don't know. And it does feel a bit like, for me personally, it felt a little weird going like, "Hey, I've made this, guys. I made this website thing with reviewing all the stuff. I have a 7-star match rating system. That's crazy, right?" And I was fully expecting to just be laughed at. That this guy is not well,
yeah.
because who does that? But I was confident enough to be like, hey, I know this is silly. I know this is like the dumbest thing ever, but that's why I did it. This is so silly. And I think that message came across very quickly. It's just own what you're trying to do. And it's a struggle. It's a struggle. Like get ready to wait in many cases. But yeah, just stick at it, stay positive. Yeah, it's life, baby.
Mm. I have never really thought about that till you was talking about it, but I do understand where you're coming from about connecting with content creators because that's my niche. I found that as my niche in
Yeah.
wrestling media. I talk to content creators. So for the first couple of interviews, it was very sort of like I have no brand. So how am I going to connect with these people? That was very weird and something I still struggle with now. Do you know what I mean? I'll send an email to someone and I'll be like, they're not going to reach out. I don't have a brand, even though we've just crossed, as we record this, 200 episodes. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah, yeah.
something that
Congratulations on the
I
200 episodes.
thank you very much, my friend. That is definitely something that I relate to massively. I'm like, how? What? How? Why has this person said yes? Like, I reached out to Steve just before, no, about not long, too long after his dad passed away, and I was like, if I'd love to have you on the show when you're ready. That was the key word because he said it in that interview. I'm a bit of a completionist, and I was like, I've had Larson on for a solo interview. I'd love to have Steve on. Do you know what I mean? So it was a
Exactly.
bit,
Yeah.
so it was very much like that, and I still have that where it's like I didn't get here. Like I'm gonna wake up and it's gonna be 2021 soon. I don't know if you feel that sometimes because I do, and I went off on a tangent there, and I do apologize.
No, no, no need to apologize, Tom. I love hearing this. Like, I love how you said though, like you would send these emails and you'd be saying to yourself, "Oh, why would they respond? Why would they?" But it didn't stop you from sending the email anyway
Mm,
because you had the doubts. But you're like, "I'm going to try anyway," and that's so cool, man. That's a skill everybody should aspire to have.
mm. Yeah, it's still very weird though. It's like I've interviewed people that I consider the goats in wrestling media, and it's still like, nah, this channel that only has not only because that sounds like an insult and not what I mean, but might only have a smaller following, they're not going to answer. That's very weird. I know.
And I love it. You just keep trying, man. Like, shoot your shot. Like,
Mm.
if you're not going to try, then nothing's going to happen. But yeah, man, you made it happen, man. Congrats.
Thank you very much, my friend. So, as we look at wrapping this up pretty soon, because I do want to be respectful of your time, and we've been going about almost 45, 50 minutes, I have two questions for you before we do a staple on this channel, which is called generic questions. And so, the questions I have for you, Rob, are do you view your career, your video editing for Stephen Larson as a success? And then, second of all, if you stepped away and said, look, I got to focus on the shoot job, or this has happened, and I don't really want to do this anymore. What would you want your legacy as a creator to be?
Um, I would consider it a success. I mean, I helped put out stuff that people liked. Like that ticks the box right there. And I had fun doing it, which is like a bonus, like a real good bonus. But if I ever were to stop, which could happen, you never know. As you say, shoot job could change, life could change, many things can change. And I'd just be like, I'd like to be remembered for like maybe a year after I leave, like a
Mm,
year and then move on with you. I don't know, man. I just the videos stay there on the internet. So like maybe someone like 5 years from now will watch a video and they'll be like, it says edited by Rob. Who's Rob? Is it I like the editing. That's cool. That's cool. That's perfectly fine with me. Like getting a compliment 5 years from now, that sounds great. I'm down for that.
that's very, very cool, my friend. So, as we look at wrapping this up, Rob, we are going to do a segment, like I said, that I call generic questions. Those of you that have seen my interviews before, well, no, this is a staple on my channel where I ask my guest their Rob's favorite match, favorite overall pay-per-view card, such as Double or Nothing 2019, favorite wrestler's entrance team, and favorite tag team and wrestler. Basically, the questions that I assume Rob might be asked on social media. So now he'll have a place to be like, guys, I have answered this. Please go watch this. So, what's your favorite match of all time?
Oh, favorite match of all time. Oh, there's so much to pick from. I'm gonna say this is a bit of a weird one, but this match has stuck with me. It happened in February of 2020, just before pandemic, like a month or so before that happened, and it was a New Japan show, New Beginning, and it was John Moxley versus Minoru Suzuki. It was their first singles match against each other. And it was in Osaka, I think, in Japan, and that match is just like it's just gleeful violence. It's just like we're as wrestling fans, we're seeing a lot of violent striking battles. And we have you have the meat chants in AEW. You got Gunther in WWE just chopping people. This was one of those matches that kind of helped usher in that kind of thing, like just violence, just strikes, just laughing, bleeding, just pure wanton violence. And there's something that match makes me feel giddy. There's no real story. I mean, there is. There's you can see Moxley has this huge respect for Suzuki, and Suzuki is he's a rabid dog that's a veteran at the same time.
Mm.
He loves the fight, and there's a bit right at the end of the match where Mox goes for a lariat and it just clobbers him like it was a stiff lariat. It goes across Suzuki's chest, and Suzuki arches back, but then just forces himself back. And Suzuki, like he laughs and he no sells quite a lot, but he was forced himself back and he just lets out this guttural scream, just pumped himself back up because he was in the fight. And the Suzuki character loves to be in a fight, and it just loves being on the edge of violence. And just see Suzuki just go, oh, just that was just him, like the beast within him, just erupting. And then straight away, Mox beat him. Mox Death Rider 1, 2, 3. I love that match. I think that's my favorite match. But that answer could change. But for right now, yeah, I'd say that's my favorite match.
That's very, very cool. What about your favorite overall pay-per-view?
Oh, overall pay per view. I mean, we just had a really cool one, AEW Revolution 2024. That was one of the best shows I've ever seen, at least recently. This pay per view. Oh, NXT Takeover Brooklyn with 2015 with Sasha Banks and Bailey. That was had Finn Balor, Kevin Owens on there.
Is that where Finn Balor and Kevin Owens are in a ladder match?
Yeah, that was the main event, and everyone's like, we just saw Sasha and Bailey. Like they had a lot to do. Best wrestling pay per view. All Out 2021. That's another one. Oh, this is tough. This is a tough one. I'm gonna say this is like an old one from my childhood. Survivor Series 2002, because that had the first ever Elimination Chamber match, which had RVD jumping on Triple H's throat and breaking his larynx or something like that. Oh, nuts. Shawn Michaels winning the World Heavyweight Championship, the only singles title he'd win after coming back from the back injury. And he had Big Show versus Lesnar. That was cool. You had the SmackDown 6 in a triple threat tag match, which was just what an incredible match that is. And he had a really good opener. He had I think it was Rico and a 3-minute warning. It was a 3-minute warning in Rico, which is Umaga, Jamal back then, and Rosie, Roman Reigns' brother, against I think it was Spike Dudley, Jeff Hardy, and Bubba Ray Dudley. And it's an elimination tables match. It's 3-on-3. And all these crazy table spots were just every single elimination was crazy. And it's just one of the best pay-per-view openers ever. It's just makes you it's just fireworks, that match. And it ends really with a Dudley Boys reunion. One of the best Dudley Boys things, Devon and Bubba finally coming back together after the Reverend Devon stuff. And you got Trish, Victoria. Yeah, I've talked myself into it. Survivor Series 2002. That might be my favorite pay-per-view all time.
What about your favorite wrestler's entrance theme?
Your wrestler's entrance theme. Oh, as soon as you said that, Julia Hart comes to mind. I love Julia Hart's entrance theme. I think that's made by I forget his name, but Brody King is in a band called and I've forgotten that too. It's a hardcore band, God's Hate it's called. And the drummer of that band also plays guitar and sings in other stuff. I think he does sing a bit in God's Hate, but he helped make Julia Hart's theme song, I believe. And man, that's a really good theme song. Best entrance theme. Oh, I am a musician, so this makes it. I should make it easier, but also it's harder. I don't know. Like there's some songs that are like, as a musician, you're like, oh, that's crazy how they did that. But some songs you're like, oh, I know what they did, but why does it sound so good? Another one I listened to the other day. It came on. No, actually, no. My favorite entrance theme is gonna have to be. It's gonna be Taz. It's gonna be Taz's ECW theme, not his WF theme, which is also fantastic. Taz's ECW theme. Just that, mate. Taz was is one of those guys you just see Taz back then, and you're like, why is this guy? Why is he treated like this killer or this guy that could beat you up? He's just smaller. I don't get it. And then you see him in the ring, like just wrecking people, throwing them about, choking them out, incredible stuff. And that theme kind of just said right from the beginning, like, hey, pay attention. This is Taz. You need a Taz or onesie, ECW Taz. Yeah, why not? It's a bit out there, but Taz's ECW theme.
That's very, very cool. What about your favorite tag team?
Favorite tag team. I really like FTR. I really like the Usos. The New Day, I kind of see them as like a faction more as a tag team, as there's 3 of them. Favorite tag team. You know what? I might get heat for this, maybe, but the Young Bucks. It's gonna be the Young Bucks. They they BTE like are watching that like I remember 2017. You hear about Kenny and Okada, like oh wow, what a crazy match they had, and like the first time I've heard of New Japan was that match. And I go to watch it; it's incredible. I see the Young Bucks. Oh, that's the Young Bucks. They're the guys I've heard about that Booker T doesn't like, or something like that. And eventually get watching BTE. Then you watch them in Ring of Honor. Then you watch them in New Japan, and like, man, these guys are great. And then they do All In. When they start a wrestling company, like they're two of the founders of a whole wrestling company that's like making millions and millions over years and years now. And they help define like there's so many matches you see like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn against the Usos from last year's WrestleMania. Like so much of that felt like a PWG Young Bucks kind of match, but in a good way. Like it was paying homage
Yeah,
because it was in California, and Kevin and Sammy were like, "Hey, we're PWG guys. Let's kind of get as much representation as we can. Like let's reference all our buddies and stuff." And the match was great. But like that's the kind of influence that Young Bucks have. Like they've never been in WWE, yet they influenced how a WrestleMania main event went down, and for a good reason. So yeah, I gotta say Young Bucks, man. Yeah.
that's very, very cool. And then finally, the biggest generic question, in my opinion: who is your favorite wrestler of all time?
That's a huge, huge generic question. I love it. Favorite wrestler of all time. Oh, it's a real struggle. Uh, oh, I don't know. I mean, there's a few like right now, like Eddie Kingston. He's just, I don't know anyone that, how can you not love Eddie Kingston? Hangman Adam Page is such a, sort of like, he's one of my favorite characters in wrestling. The anxious, the mental health stuff that his character goes through. Like as champion, he's struggling under the pressure. He's the Swerve stuff. Like Swerve was horrible to him, but we're all loving Swerve. We all forgive Swerve for all the horrible things he's done. But Hangman's like, I can't forgive him. You see what he did to my family. Like
Yeah,
he's going through such torment. He does such a great job of displaying all that. Favorite character? Oh, this is so tough. This is such a tough question. Oh, I'm gonna say, mm, I'm gonna say Kenny Omega. It has to be. It's just his lore of just being a backyard wrestler in Canada, and sending a videotape to DDT to be like, "Hey, can you book me in Japan? I wrestled a match against my neighbor in like a little house." It's just a crazy. Oh, it's just the way his can do attitude and his willingness to sort of be himself and what he stands for. It's just so refreshing. And it's like that he's not just a mid-card guy, he's like a main event guy. And he brings
yeah,
all that with him. And his beliefs, the way he wrestles, his explosiveness. Yeah, I just there's no one like Kenny Omega. Like he really is like maybe the best. And yeah, probably my favorite. So yeah, why not Kenny Omega, man? The guy's great.
that's very, very cool, my friend. But as we wrap this up, Rob, obviously I want to say thank you for a great conversation. But the question I end this show on is I believe as people with social media, podcasters, YouTubers, whatever word you want to use, we're all sort of gonna live forever in some sort of very weird way. So we spoke about some of the content you're proud of earlier. But what is one piece of content you're like, I'd like to be remembered for that? Then what is one that you're like, yuck, please forget about that?
Oh, yuck piece of content. I have to think earlier stuff. I would say maybe some of like my early edits, but thankfully they're not like immortal. They're on my Twitter, so like I guess they're immortalized, but not really. I would say I used to do this. So I used to do this thing called singing tweets. I had a bunch of wrestlers would I'd get a bunch of their tweets and turn it into a song. Some of them were pretty cringe,
Mm,
so just avoid most of those. Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't really watch them back because I can't really. So yeah, I thought that would be fun. I thought this is fun at the time, but it's just it's just nope. Not I've grown out of that. The content that I would say people should watch. The first thing I'd recommend to them would be yeah, it'd have to be like the Steve Thunder stuff is up there. Like that's kind of I don't know. It's hard to like think positively about my own work because of getting the imposter syndrome. Can't
yeah,
escape it, Tom. I can't escape it. Um, yeah, no, just go with the my GM stuff. It go Enforcer and Steve doing my GM. I think I did a really good job with that, especially the 2K the first season of my GM, I was really proud of what I did there, which wasn't much, honestly. That was the whole thing: is just leave it as it is, make its story. It's great already. Just shorten it, just make it just little tweaks. And yeah, I'm really proud of the restraint I showed on those edits, but also just the work itself, like being able to edit content like that with Enforcer and Steve just having the time of their lives. Like Steve doing Stone Cold voice while he was in a match, like, talking to Scott Hall's on the other side. Like, hey Scott, just doing the Stone Cold. I still watch those from time to time, and yeah, I recommend that to anybody.
I would agree, my friend. So as we wrap this up, Rob, obviously again I want to say thank you for a great conversation, but please promote yourself. Where can the good people find you, your work, etc.?
Oh, I've had a great conversation with you, Tom. Oh, I would say I would say I don't really have any like socials anymore. Just have Twitter really. So yeah, go on Twitter or X. It's at Raw Observer, which is ARAAR. Can't even spell my own dumb made up name. At RAWBSERVER at Raw Observer. I might be doing some stuff on YouTube soon, helping out with Stephen Larson. We might have a thing coming up soon, new channel possibly. We'll see. And I've also got some own solo stuff I'm thinking of doing too. As you can see, I've got a camera and mic, so I might as well use them for something. So stay tuned. Look at my Twitter; it'll start there. So Twitter X, go there, give me a follow, and some cool stuff might be happening soon. So yeah, go for that.
It's well worth doing, guys. Not only probably one of the hardest working and most just nicest people in this brand, but yeah, one of the nicest as well. So if you guys like this, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at Tom Talks Rubbish, and follow me on Twitter at Tom Talks Rubbish on X, and I will see you in the next one. And I will see you in the next one. Goodbye now.